What's going on, y'all? Welcome to Chain Reaction. I'm your host, Jeremiah, joined today by Jeremiah Harding. What's going on, man? How's it going?
I'm pretty reasonable. How about you?
Doing all right, all things considered. A little bit more warmongering going on than is my preference, but there's other good things in life.
Yeah, like the fact that the anti-war movement is finally fucking back. Oh, Obama can drone thousands of people, but we're fine. Then Trump, bombs one military base, and we're like, no.
Yeah.
Fucking...
Yeah, it's one thing that has been surprising to me is looking at a lot of the right is anti-war with Trump when they weren't actually anti-war with Obama. It is quite surprising that they're showing some degree of consistency even though they supported Trump. It's just a rare thing. Even like Ann Coulter saying things I agree with. That hasn't happened in a decade.
Oh, really? I like a lot of what Ann Coulter has to say. Really?
I'm just playing. No, I'm sure we agree on a lot of things. But she
it's sort of like, when
she
showed up on Bill Maher, I agreed with a lot of what both of them had to say.
Yeah. All right, so today's show, here's our plan. We're going to talk primarily about Syria and what's going on there. It's April 9th today, so just a few days after Trump bombed an air base in Syria in response to a gas attack that we'll get into. And if Jim Davidson gets back to us, we will have him on the show tonight. He hasn't responded to either of our most recent attempts to confirm with him, and if he comes on, he'll be at 7:45 Eastern in like 40 minutes from now to talk about his pretty much on-air arrest last week. So that might be interesting.
Yep. Yeah, and it's for pretty fucked up reasons if what I understand from the situation is true, but also, if my understanding is true, then he's probably going to be fine, in terms of what they can legally pin to him, for many reasons that I think would be better discussed by him. But I'm just saying he'll probably be fine. I don't know of a reason he wouldn't be.
Yeah, he should be perfectly okay. I don't think they're going to be able to pin anything on him either. Although he was just a little bit of a dick. It's kind of what it seems like occurred in that situation.
Okay, so from what I understand, his neighbor was leaning on the horn, like they want to do. I don't know his neighbors, so if you're listening for some fucking weird reason, and you know about this, then just know that I don't know you, so I don't know the situation, and I'm not trying to get involved. All I'm saying is that, from what I understand, his neighbors were leaning on the horn on their car while he was unloading shit. And he flipped them off while holding an axe or unloading a rifle or something, and they got together with other neighbors and accused him of fucking assault or whatever. But I don't know the full situation, so I wouldn't know. If what he says is true, then I'd have flipped him off too. If not, then I'd have to hear their side. But this isn't about that, so we'll wait for him to tell what he's legally comfortable saying.
Yeah, in the meantime, we'll tell details he's not legally comfortable with saying. All right.
Well, all of that was pretty much what Ben said on the podcast last.
All right, Harding, you're cutting out. Hopefully, you'll come back and be more active in this conversation. All right, so let's talk about Syria. Might want to try calling back on Skype because I can't hear a thing you're saying. Okay, April 4th, 2017. I'm just talking right through Harding. April 4th, 2017, there was a gas attack reported in the Idlib province in Syria. Now, we're not sure on the details. I can't hear anything you're saying, Harding. But They called it a gas attack, and the report came out that it was a gas attack right away. It was almost immediate that when people were flooding into hospitals, they were saying that it was a gas attack coming from people on the ground, and people in the hospitals, reports were showing signs of having suffered some sort of respiratory problems, likely from gas. And everyone on the ground immediately started blaming the Syrian army. And all of the reports of the mainstream media, and we'll just stick to those reports for now, basically were that Bashar al-Assad had deliberately engaged in a chemical weapons attack on his own people in the Idlib province. And then, as a result of those attacks, at least on the ostensibly a result of those attacks, Trump engaged in he ordered people to bomb an airbase in Syria, where planes frequently flew out of to engage in bombing runs on the Syrian rebels, which are primarily made up of the Islamic State and Al-Qaeda and Al-Qaeda affiliated groups that are, as a general rule, loyal to Ayman al-Zawahiri, aka the Butcher of New York. Now, that's what happened. Harding, would you like to comment anymore?
Yeah, if I'm coming through clearly.
Yeah, you're good.
So what? From what I understand, the first strike was on a military base, and it was basically to surrounding structures, et cetera, et cetera. But there wasn't much damage, but they were holding Russian equipment. And so the theory, like a lot of these new anti-war people are having, is that they did that to strike that Russian equipment. So I think that this is probably already like some sort of planned conflict. I really don't see a way that it couldn't be. But for my money, I don't think it was Assad, because first off, they were handling the patients with bare hands, and the doctors aren't getting sick, unless that comes out shortly, because they're handling sarin with bare hands.
The initial reports from a doctor, I can't remember his name, something Islam, Shajul Islam or something like that, was saying that it was sarin gas, and multiple people were reporting that it was sarin gas. Yet, in videos and in images of people, groups like the White Helmets, who we have talked about and basically have explained that they are a U.S. and British-backed and defense contractor-initiated helpful group in Syria under the guise of helping people, that provides primary information on the ground for Assad's attacks, and who people on the ground have said only help when Al-Qaeda is around. And they're basically a excellent propaganda piece for NATO-backed powers and people looking for regime change with Assad. But they were handling these people under a supposed sarin gas attack with bare hands, like Harding was saying, and there were people in the vicinity without gas masks. And sarin gas, when made properly, one droplet basically can kill someone. So it's incredibly dangerous to be around, and you do not handle it with bare hands. It is possible that it was bad sarin gas, poorly made, you watch Breaking Bad, it's made by Jesse alone in the RV, as opposed to Walt and Jesse in Gus's building, where it just doesn't have the same potency, it's not made correctly, it doesn't quite have as strong of an effect as sarin gas that's made under proper conditions. Which, if Assad was the one who had the sarin gas and who launched the sarin gas, his stuff was high quality, not made in a facility by some Al-Qaeda people.
Well, and the really interesting thing in my view, is that related to this is the idea that the U.S. is fighting terrorism. I mean, I still remember when Hillary Clinton was talking about either ISIS or Al Qaeda. I believe it was Al Qaeda. She brought up that, you know, don't forget that the people we're fighting we funded not too long ago, or something like that's a pretty direct quote. It's more likely a paraphrase. But you know, the Middle Eastern people wouldn't even have the capabilities to make IEDs without the CIA intervention in the 80s. So the idea that these ragtag people would suddenly know not only how to make stable sarin gas, but how to launch it is fairly absurd, especially if the thing you're saying is that these explosions of sarin gas didn't destroy a lot of the product when it needs to be released without heat so that it can disperse properly and not be destroyed. So
Right.
the whole story is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, there's so much to it. It's also possible that it could be chlorine gas as well, which is much easier to make and ship. It does seem, based upon what I've read about reports coming out of multiple hospitals, that there was some sort of gas involved given the conditions of the people in the hospital. But it's really, this attack comes like days after, I think it was the March 31st, so 5 days before the gas attack. Nikki Haley, the UN or U.S. ambassador to Syria, to the UN? Yeah, U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. That's who it is. She said that there is no longer a U.S. focus on removing Assad from power in Syria. And I think a few days before the attack, one of Trump's other major advisors said something very, very similar. So you already have the administration backing off on Assad. And then April 5th, there was European Union talks scheduled about what to do in Syria with Assad and with the mess that's going on there on April 5th. And then on April 4th, the day before, this gas attack happens. It is the most convenient timing for the warmongers that you can imagine. Like it's just the timing of it alone is incredibly suspicious. Because we already know.
And you know, it's suspicious in more than one way too, because first off, Syria is it remains one of the countries that's not like totally like gung ho for OPEC, and that's like not totally gung ho for the petrodollar or central banking, at least according to like, you know, surface appearance. And also you have Trump, who theoretically isn't connected to Russia, and who's gotten a huge amount of pressure from the international community to prove that. And what better way to do that than posturing against Russia in the same way that the CIA did in the 1980s when they, you know, armed and supported Mujahideen against the Soviets. Like, it's just a repeat of the same shit that happened you know, ages ago. And the CIA's even been in prominent news recently when they when the Vault 7 leaks came out. It's just the same shit in a different context. They know what works and they know what they can get away with. And it's, you know, to think that there's not more to this story than big bad government guy who's, you know, with the big bad government, you know, instead of the benevolent, you know, angel government that the United States is for some reason in people's minds. You know, the whole thing has many layers to it. And to just say that it's because of Assad, that Assad did this with, you know, no real reasonable public evidence and just, you know, official sources to back it up.
Yeah.
That just seems like when a fucking pig kills somebody and it's not a problem because they did an internal investigation and found out they didn't do anything. You know, like if you want the people to assume something, make them assume it about some people that they already don't like, that there's already some subliminal racism or jingoism about. They're Middle Easterners. Of course, their dictator would do something evil, whereas our presidents won't do anything illegal or unethical.
Yeah, and I think it is possible that Assad actually did the gassing. I just think it's very unlikely.
And either way, like, even if it did happen, then it's still the wrong response to go into fucking war. Because as we've seen with every other Middle Eastern conflict, you don't fight these people by fighting them. You do concerted campaigns of public trust gaining in the area, and you don't create more terrorists by bombing civilian areas, which is guaranteeably what they'll do.
Well,
so
right.
like they're creating the problem, and then they're whining about it, and they're saying that we need to have countless Americans' lives go possibly down the shitter because of their mistakes, and that is the most infuriating part of this.
Yeah, it's all infuriating. I mean, it would be so stupid. We should point out it would be so stupid for Assad to do this. Rulers do really stupid things sometimes because they're arrogant and power hungry, and they don't necessarily have a pulse on the world at times. But everyone knows, I think Assad knows, that if he's using chemical weapons on his own citizens, that is basically signing his own execution order, knowing that this will get more NATO involvement in direct bombing of him. I think that Gaddafi in Libya is the most likely thing that would happen to Assad if he was actually engaging in gassing his own citizens on the regular basis or at a scale this high. I think there are much more efficient ways to commit suicide than this really roundabout way of gassing people, which is essentially what he would be doing by getting involved in this. I don't think he's really interested in having a war with the U.S. or in pissing off Russia by causing war with the U.S. because Russia will lose a war with the U.S. And I think he just wants power in his own place as if it's actually his. I don't think he's interested in starting a larger war. He has enough of a difficult time with ISIS and Al-Qaeda as it is. And up until this point, he was making advances against the rebel groups in his country and against ISIS in various regions. It's not like he was losing the war and was desperate, so he had to use gas to kill a few hundred people, or I think kill like 100 people. I think there's a few hundred casualties, people that are recovering in hospitals and whatnot. He had really he could always drop a bomb if he wanted to do that and not receive the ire of the world.
Yeah, and because there's two parts to this. There's the concept of nation building, where if you're an affiliated power with global elites, the first step to nation building is to unseat previous powers and nations and have your own puppet dictator in that office. And the bulk of nation building is in that first step, is getting that foothold established, is getting U.S. troops in that area and a dictator who's okay with those U.S. troops in that area. And so the idea of having a fake attack staged if a dictator decides he stops wanting to play ball, to me, that's totally normal. That's something that's happened. Gaddafi was a result of that, since you bring him up, because he stopped wanting to accept the U.S. dollar.
Yep.
He stopped wanting to play ball. He saw that it wasn't beneficial. And yeah, he did a bunch of other somewhat fucked up shit. He's no hero, but that doesn't mean that he's the biggest villain in the room. I mean, I still fucking reflexively come back to the idea that more people in the U.S. have been killed by cops than terrorists, and then they're more afraid of Al-Qaeda or ISIS or the latest brown boogeyman in the Middle East than they are of the people in their own government. And then this whole mentality starts to fletch up where they wanted to fly right, so they say, well, we're doing this for freedom, we're spreading democracy, the same Bernaysian propaganda that started spreading at World War I. And then we get this mentality that, of course, we're over there. We're fighting for freedom. We're fighting for justice. Instead of being the global elite tools that the troops have become, if they weren't already in the beginning, given the Whiskey Rebellion. So
Right.
the whole thing stinks. And Ron Paul even agrees. He said it doesn't make any sense. He said it doesn't make any sense, and that it couldn't make any sense because Assad has no incentive to do that to the citizens of Syria. No incentive. And
the data on the ground doesn't support it.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, in terms of his attack. And the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons back in 2013 went in there and said that all the Syrian chemical weapons were destroyed and that they got rid of their ability to make them. That doesn't mean they couldn't have built it back up since then. That is certainly possible, but unlikely. And we already, back in 2013, we already know that people staged chemical attacks to try to get the U.S. involved in Syria against Assad. And not that they're already involved, but they're involved indirectly through funding and arming of groups on the ground rather than direct bombings until a couple days ago. But they basically, Barack Obama was like, there's the red line in Syria is if Assad uses chemical weapons, then we're going to have to get him out of power. And then I don't remember how many days later it was, but not that many. And all of a sudden there were reports on the ground of sarin gas being used on people. And then after months later of investigation and some members of the intelligence community actually telling the truth to some people and coming out anonymously to reporters, it turns out that those sarin gas missiles were fired by the rebels and likely acquired sarin gas through Libya and or Turkey. So
well, and
they
then
have a
there's
history.
that 200. Then there's that 2016 attack that turned out to be entirely faked. If I can find the link in my Twitter, I posted it there not too long ago. As part of the thread that I wanted to go viral.
Gotcha.
But the idea of these people being the ones responsible, the Syrian government, after a long history of fakery and outright lies, to me it's naive to believe that. Once I find this thread, it'll make much more sense why I'm just coming out and saying that. But one moment.
Okay.
So
the rebel groups, Al Qaeda groups on the ground, were also found by the UN in 2014, I believe, on 2 separate occasions, attempting chlorine gas attacks in a way where they were trying to frame the Assad government in order to, like we keep saying, get more involvement of these other nations directly opposing Assad in Syria so they can take power. It is an insane thing, even if, like Jeremiah was saying, even if Assad did actually gas these people, to now start bombing him to try to overthrow his regime is foolish, even for a statist perspective, even from a statist perspective. There are, like I think I've said this on the show multiple times already, but my best understanding and the people I respect most who do reporting in this area, according to them, there are only 2 groups who could possibly go to Damascus and take power in Syria. They are ISIS and Al Qaeda and their affiliates. So what do you want? Do you want literally a bunch of terrorists who are renowned for actually targeting civilians, not killing civilians accidentally while targeting munitions, which is bad enough as it is. Don't want to downplay that. But when ISIS just bombed a few hundred people in a church this today. So is that who you want running Syria? Because you don't have a ton of options. It's not like you just throw I don't know who's an ideal statist ruler, Nelson Mandela on the throne there. That is not a choice.
Well,
Uh,
and if you do decide to like impose a new ruler, you don't do it by starting in a territory where people are already well aware of shit. You need to stage it well, and they didn't.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but like it's sort of absurd to even think that they would have rebuilt those chemical factories when it's really easy to just build explosives or get the
Yes.
chemical weapons
I agree.
from another place. So, like the whole thing, I don't see how it could be true.
Yeah, I don't want to absolutely rule it out just because rulers make dumb decisions. I just find it the least likely explanation that Assad bombed these people because it's not in his interest. It doesn't give him any strategic victory. He doesn't. That could possibly do is hurt his reputation internationally, involve other nations in bombing him, and hurt his reputation with his own citizens, which has been improving, especially since they overtook Aleppo, and there's just been the life for the people in Aleppo has been a lot.
What's Aleppo?
I don't know. I don't know what Aleppo is. But life for the people at Aleppo has been significantly better under Assad than under the Al-Qaeda rebel groups who were holding eastern Aleppo, I believe, just a few months ago. I mean, they actually celebrated Christmas, which is a crazy thing that you get to do under a secular dictator that you don't get to do when you're under a bunch of jihadists. So this hurts his reputation. And here's what Russia says happened and what other people say happened. They say that Assad did engage in bombing that particular area in the Idlib province, and what happened was they hit a rebel munitions storage facility which contained some sort of gas, either sarin or chlorine gas. That seems to be a very likely explanation to me. I know I listened to the Scott Horton show, and Philip Giraldi was on. He's a former DIA, CIA analyst, intelligence officer, and he said that the people he talks to from the intelligence community on the ground right now confirm Russia's story as being the one that's true. And he also said that the U.S. has Syria completely covered in terms of gathering information. They have drones all over the place videotaping everything. They have satellite images constantly, and that if it was a chemical weapons attack by Assad or by anyone, they more than likely have video of what occurred and have exact information about what happened. And that sort of evidence is easy to release to the public and is definitely desirable if you have it to do so in order to get people on board with more and more people on board with your bombing of Assad. But they haven't released it. I believe they're trying to fabricate something else, which makes it look like Assad's doing this so they don't look back in a month and realize, oh, turns out we were wrong. We bombed him anyway.
Well, and like, it's funny because, well, in an interesting definition sort of way, that, like, just before that fucking thing happened, the Free Thought Project put out an article, False Flag Flashback, the White Helmets admitted to staging a terror video in 2016. Is
that the mannequin challenge one?
I don't think so. Okay. I think that was a different one.
Okay.
But what was it?
The White Helmets stage, false flag.
It's what the White Helmets have done in the past, what should call into question any and all claims they have ever made. The White Helmets emergency response teams, whose film actually won an Oscar, are also guilty of staging bombings. Then when they got caught staging the scenes, they were simply doing a mannequin challenge to so yeah, I mean that is what that was. But yeah, like that's essentially they had the audacity to stage this attack, and then claimed that it was just a viral internet thing. Which, by the way, if you're trying to save people, maybe don't do it by doing a viral internet campaign in the middle of a fucking war zone. But to move on, that the Daily Caller News Foundation has a quote from Ron Paul saying that that Syria totally looks like a false flag right now. And he says, before this episode of possible gas exposure and who did what, things were going along reasonably well for the conditions. Trump said, let the Syrians decide who should run their country, and peace talks were making out, and Al-Qaeda and ISIS were on the run. It looks like maybe somebody didn't like that, so there had to be an episode, and the blame now is that we can't let that happen because it looks like it might benefit Assad. And that's Ron Paul. You know, he's not somebody to fuck around. And then on globalresearch.ca, which is an anti-globalism institute that I found out about through watching Alex Jones for years, they have an article written up on how Syria, the truth behind the Idlib chemical attack, chemical weapons were stored and possessed by terrorist groups. And it has a quote from Faisal Mekdad, who's Syrian Deputy Foreign and Expatriates Minister. And he says, the army has never used such weapons, even in the most intense and critical battles with the terrorist groups. And he also reminded Stefan de Mistura, UN Special Envoy to Syria, to act in accordance with his role and neutrally approach the situation, which, you know, clearly that went totally fine. But then the Fifth Column News even has a report: U.S. killed more Syrians than IS or Russia in March. You know,
I was just going to talk about that. I mean, we just talked a few weeks ago about one bombing run that resulted in 200 and some deaths in Mosul.
Yeah,
in Iraq and Syria, they're dominating civilians.
Yeah, I mean, because that's what ISIS fucking stands for. It's Islamic States of Iraq and Syria. And we're talking about the two countries in that acronym are suddenly having leaders act like terrorists, more than government already does. And it just, the whole thing fucking smells. The whole thing smells. I don't know how anybody could believe this as it's been reported so far. And if there's not an anti-war movement because of this, then it's because politics have failed and rulership has taken root and will never be unseated. It's fucking absurd.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't anti-war. Obama did really stupid things as well. I mean, there wasn't anti-war when there was lies about the last attack, when it was obviously proven false. It wasn't anti-war when even Hillary Clinton and even Donald Trump were able to explain that the U.S. was backing a bunch of terrorists in Syria. These are things they've said and warned about in the past. And there was an anti-war when, under the Obama administration, the U.S. Air Force bombed a Syrian base that they said, oops, it was an accident. They killed 60-some Syrian soldiers. And they said, oh, yeah, we thought they were ISIS. It had been this Syrian base for quite a long time, many months. And turns out U.S. intelligence was so horrible, they thought it was ISIS, that it's just a utter and complete lie is what that is. And not long after they did it, ISIS attacked. And we should point out, too, according to Matt Agrest of the Free Thought Project, that when the U.S. bombed the base in al-Shabaab, al-something, all these names are so hard for me to remember, but no one listening is going to remember them anyway. Al-something.
Well, yeah, I mean, they didn't remember al-Awlaki.
Anwar al-Awlaki?
Or his brother, or his sister.
Oh, yeah. ISIS engaged in a massive attack against the Syrian army on the same night that they sent 59 Tomahawk missiles to bomb the Syrian government. And then, today, right now, as we're speaking, the U.S. is dropping bombs on or planning another bombing of the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, because they always are. They're constantly doing that, even as they are bombing other people for them in very similar locations.
Yeah, just look up the song from King Missile, "America Kicks Ass." It'll explain all of this fucking situation.
Yeah, I will try to remember that. Maybe we'll post the link. I think one of the most frustrating parts about this is that I sound like an Assad and Putin apologist. The U.S. is...
Yeah, but I sound and look like one. All I need is a turban.
Yeah, and more of a tan. But you're getting pretty close. Summer's
I've been
coming
hiding
up.
in a cave. It always works to hide,
Yeah, Osama did it for 15 years. That's how you stay alive when the state's after you.
Yeah, and of course, and then he found a nice flat in Abbottabad, and he was fine there.
Yeah.
But don't worry, they'll dump my body before saying anything about it. Then I'll be taken to a government reprogramming center, and everything will be fine. I'll come out completely shaved. I'll look totally different, and they'll just put some age makeup on me when they want me to shoot a video for the government's sake. It'll all be fine. Waterboarding is totally cool. America.
Yeah. Not to get off track, but listeners, when you hear that stuff, isn't it? I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Really, I sort of am. I think that there are a bunch of people who are conspiring to do a bunch of bad shit around the world, so I guess that makes me a conspiracy theorist. I don't think they are necessarily successful in getting all the things done that they want to, but they get a lot done. But when you hear nonsense about people going in and killing Osama bin Laden in his compound or whatever, and then taking a couple pictures and then dumping his body in the ocean and then just believing that, why would you do that? That is not the way you would handle things if you had actually killed Osama bin Laden, if you had actually found him, if this had actually occurred. You
wouldn't kill Osama bin Laden. You'd tase the motherfucker or put him under sedatives from a dart gun and then use the intelligence he had. You wouldn't. You would stay there and collect as much of that intelligence in those boxes as possible. You would not do what Zero Dark 30 had in its plot. It's fucking ridiculous. It's not what happens. If you wanted to truly influence global geopolitics and you didn't already have all that information, you would have used every possible pains to get that information. It's not like Navy SEALs couldn't have, found some way to subdue him. There's beanbag guns. Just carry a beanbag gun. Like, they can use that in Oakland and shatter people's face bones, but they can't use that in Abbottabad. Give me a fucking break.
Yeah. I always try to leave a caveat that it's possible because the government is stupid, but it just does not seem likely at all. They do lots of stupid stuff.
They do lots of stuff that appears stupid, but to me, that could just be part of theater. They know exactly how to look stupid. Why wouldn't they do that just to misdirect? It's really easy to act stupid. Acting smart requires a better script.
I agree. I think though there is a political benefit for Barack Obama and for the people in his administration to just killing Osama bin Laden, and that's a conceivable motive that benefits them.
Well, what's the motive to killing him that couldn't be better performed by keeping him alive? What? It's just a revenge mission? You had something to do with something that, that resulted in 3,000 of our American deaths. So what we'll do, we'll have a huge operation where we throw a bunch of bodies at the situation and destroy the entire place. And then eventually when we find you, which will take us forever for some reason that isn't true, we'll eventually reach you, and then we'll find you, and then we'll kill you because we don't like you. No, that's not what you do. If you're affiliated in any way with an intelligence agency, to keep people alive that have actionable intelligence in their brain. Like, he staged 9/11, he's done. No, if he was there, he was going to stage other shit. There's guaranteedly more things that he could have done with his life. In fact, he was doing more things with his life if you take the word of the media and the people who perpetuated the videos that followed 9/11, where he recorded from a secret underground base. But the whole idea of blowing the brains out of somebody who has intelligence that could be used to save lives if you can extract it is fucking absurd. Like, if you watch Zero Dark 30, they torture people for countless hours to get intelligence, but they're just gonna blow his brains out? Oh yeah, it looks cool, but it's not true. It's fucking not true. There's no way it's true.
Yeah, I think it's unlikely that it's true, but I can see why someone would do that to gain popularity with the American people. Yeah, but it is absolutely absurd, and I know that they did not want to get Osama. They did not want him to have a platform to provide information to people, and they did not want him to. I don't think they wanted him to go to court.
Well,
back in 2001.
Going to court wouldn't have been what they did if they were already okay with doing an illegal, might I remind every listener here, illegal raid in Pakistan to get this motherfucker in the first place. They were already planning on breaking the law. They broke the law, so why not break the law again, not give him a trial, and torture him for fucking ever? Doesn't make any sense. You know, you want a catharsis, have the guy who killed 3,000 of your people and did the rally around the flag effect be on Sparky Weekly, where you torture him publicly. Like, this isn't like... I mean, that's an exaggerative example. They would certainly not do that because human rights, blah, blah. But the general impression you should get of these people is that they're definitely okay with doing illegal things. So why not also do unethical things? Or why not, you know, keep them alive so that you can have a verifiable intelligence source? So if they were there and if they did find him, they didn't fucking kill him. That's guaranteed in my mind, because there's no reason to gank the intelligence source that could keep, like, countless people alive. You know? Like, oh yeah, he's totally disconnected at that point. The only reason they would have killed him, the only reason I can see that possible, is if he knew too much and he was about to spill to some other people. And so the people he was, like, actually connected with spilled some data and told that data to the U.S. government, saying that's it. And then the U.S. government went up and did cleanup operations in exchange. You know, there's no reason to assume that they were just shooting him because terrorism, America, none.
Yeah,
that's not true.
I agree.
It can't be.
I was thinking way back in 2001, the Taliban offered up Osama when he was in Afghanistan to the U.S. government if he went to. They gave them multiple options for different nations to go to have a trial to actually determine and analyze his guilt. But I think that he knew too much, and that they were scared that too much information would come out about the U.S. government's involvement, at least with the Saudi connection, but probably a lot more than that. I mean, they hid the Saudi connection in the last pages of the kind of pathetic 9/11 Commission report for over a decade, and that report was particularly tame and not done with as extensive of an analysis as people would like, but it did show that the Saudis were funding multiple 9/11 groups and funding the caretakers, and that they rushed out some of their own people to avoid having a trial in the U.S. after 9/11, you know, one of the U.S. closest allies in the Middle East.
And then when leaks were threatened for the CIA torture reports they, quote, used to find him, they were fucking suddenly destroyed when they were about to be leaked, when they were about to be declassified, and when the American people were about to be able to read them. Whoops! We broke them. Sorry. Just like Hillary destroying her servers. And just like all intelligence, anything, redacting everything important out of the information so that the only thing you get is something sterilized. Like, fuck.
Yes.
We're supposed to believe these motherfuckers? They're acting in our interests. That's why they won't tell us anything.
Right, so there's at least some subjectivity where if you read between the lines, you can only make guesses as to what the actual reports are. The only real information that you get out of the intelligence community is if it's leaked to WikiLeaks or something, and even that's usually pretty tame, or if they are individuals who don't appreciate what's going on in the secretive nature of things, because there are individuals that don't actually agree with what the U.S. government is doing that work for the state, who do come out anonymously to various reporters at times. I mean, yep, and Seymour, in terms of the 2013 gas attacks, Seymour Hersh relies on multiple members of these intelligence communities to provide anonymous reports to him, to provide accurate information. And that's the only way you're going to get information that's accurate, except you can't verify it because they're anonymous, and you can't verify the sources, and you can't actually get anything confirmed. You know that you can't prove anything with that because they could just be lying and making it up, potentially. It's just that is the only way you're going to get that sort of accurate information, but you don't necessarily know whether or not it's true.
Well, and if you look for your accurate information from the U.S. government, whose primary job over the past probably 250 years has been to obfuscate shit, then you're either daft or intentionally deaf. You know, you should, like, if you want good information, you have to dig, or at least trust those of us who do dig. You know, it's like I said on my Facebook the other day. If you're not willing to research the global politics, and you're unwilling to listen to those of us that do, then you're a fucking leech.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Just FYI, guys, Jim Davidson hasn't gotten back to me, and I don't really want to disturb him unless he's confirmed ahead of time. I thought it was more set, but I guess not. So if you're tuning in to hear him, I don't think that is going to happen this evening. So I know I said it would on Twitter. Sorry about that.
Maybe he's down with the sickness.
Yeah, he might be down with the sickness. Yeah, I know. Disturbed. Thanks for clarifying. I guess that's an old song now.
It's a classic hit.
Is it one of the new classic rock hits? Is Down with the Sickness?
If you think about it, like when because I'm 24. I was born in 1992, and when I was like 15,
so young and virile,
songs from the 90s were becoming classic hits and being put on my local classic hit stations. Like, I'd hear the Backstreet Boys alongside the Eagles, and it pissed me off hugely. But the things that were old when we were young are now that same time frame for what are old when we're older. Yeah, and so that means that the new classic hits are things like Marilyn Manson and Disturbed, and the new oldies are things like Eagles and Eric Clapton.
Yeah, that's true. I listen to a lot of classic rock then, and new rock, which is nice.
Yeah, well, I that's why I like genres instead of years, because I don't care which year it came from if it's good fucking music. I love industrial music of all subgenres. Like and like there's almost no like exceptions to that. And it started in 1979. So to me, it doesn't matter to me what year it came from. It's not about classic or modern. It's a matter of is it good and well put together? And both of those can be answered yes for the majority of what industrial I've heard.
Yeah, I like a lot of music that's in like the last 15 years, because there's actually different styles in terms of like hardcore. Metalcore is my favorite genre by far. And I like almost everything in that just because there isn't that much of it, even if it's bad. I listen to bad music periodically and enjoy it. Just like
I don't think there's a such thing as a guilty pleasure. Like, I think there's only pleasures. I think that if it's good, then it can also be bad to other people. It's subjective.
Yeah. All right, Syria, we talked a lot about. I feel like we covered this individual gas attack fairly well. As far as things to
World War III.
Look for in the future, yeah, Russia sent out some sort of ship to meet the U.S. Navy vessels that bombarded the Syrian air base. We'll see what happens with that. Great Britain sent out a ship to meet the Russian ship. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to actually do other than just a show of force. Russia. What's that? Posturing. Yeah, posturing. Gives him some level. I don't know. I don't even know if it helps him with negotiating power at all. If you want to hear reason about this sort of event from a world ruler, or about the U.S.'s involvement, listen to Putin. It's always good to hear information from the opposition. It's usually accurate. Usually you can just say accurate things about what the other ruler is doing, and it paints them in a very inaccurate light. If you want to learn about all Putin's shit, just listen to the U.S.'s criticisms. He's a pretty horrible monster as well. But he invites the U.S. to show their evidence of this particular attack. I don't anticipate the United States actually getting into World War III in this case, but who knows? It's a nice fear to throw out there to justify more military spending and a hell of a lot more money for the people involved with that, and a hell of a lot more power for the state. Even just the 59 Tomahawk missiles is like $100 million in the pockets of Raytheon, I just looked the other day, their profits have increased by their stock price has increased by 3 times since the start of the Syrian conflict. That's just one company.
So 2 responses to that.
Yeah.
First off, speaking of industrial music, check out KMFDM's song. It's fucking great. It's World War III, WW3 eyes on it, and it's a really, really good song. It's good anti-establishment pump up music. And the second thing is, it's funny because I kept on talking about how Trump being president, with everybody that I know, like, and everybody I could speak about it to online, sort of like a fucking missionary thing. I was telling everybody that fucking Trump was going to get in and that it was going to benefit his business interests. Well, why would he need that? He's already massively rich. And I said, well, he's not going to stop his connections with people. He's not going to lose his stock options. And he's already connected with Bilderberg. Well, that doesn't matter. He won't do anything. Nah. And so it's amusing and amazing that people didn't see the writing on the wall, that a big business connected man would suddenly fight in the same way that, oh shit, other big business connected people did. That's stunning. That's a talk of a terrorist right there.
Yeah. I think it's funny. I saw an image that just showed when you vote for Trump to stop World War III, and it just shows him transforming over 4 images into Hillary Clinton, who, by the way, hours before the U.S. bombed the Syrian airbase, suggested that they bomb Syrian air bases. So you're getting what you would have got with Hillary. It's the same thing. I hoped, because what else can you do, that Trump would be somewhat different. I didn't count on it, and I didn't think he would be. But, he was an outsider, and the deep state didn't really like him, but he fell in line quite quickly, and perhaps all of their dislike was just a show. Anyway.
Like I said, maybe? We need that. We need the X-Files thing.
Oh, okay,
we need that sound.
Yeah, I didn't... There, it took me a while to find it. There you go.
And there we go.
It's possible. But I do think that Trump is just falling in line with what the deep state wants. But I think that they convinced him to do it.
Otherwise, why would he be in?
Why would he be in?
Yeah, the people didn't elect him.
Yeah,
people elected nobody, and the majority of the other people elected Hillary. The Electoral College requires gerrymandering to elect somebody outside of the people's interests, and that gerrymandering has to be done in district elections based on current numbers before people even vote. So they had already planned this for a fucking while before then. I don't know why he would suddenly fall in line. I don't know why they would have somebody in who could potentially not fall in line. You know, that's that. I mean, the only reason JFK got shot is because after he got done playing the elites' games, he started to talk about them. And then he started to sign an executive order that would transfer power away from the Fed slightly and start to move us back toward the gold standard. Slandered.
And he talked about the CIA being abolished.
Yeah. So then he's suddenly killed by a crazed madman. Then suddenly there's a Syrian gas attack by a crazed dictator. So the idea that this isn't part of a script, the idea that this isn't a giant controlled reality show when we've got the fucking Celebrity Apprentice guy in the White House, to me that's absurd. You know, and you want to talk to bring back up industrial music, watch the video for Dope, which is a band. Their video for their cover of Ministry's Thieves has a lot of good shit in it, and I blasted it to my social networks as soon as I found out about it. But it's really, really fucking good, and it's amusing too. Picture it as a giant caricature, but also use it as a way to analyze what's in there. And I'm mainly talking to listeners, but that video is fucking great, and their version of Thieves. I didn't know you could make Ministry heavier, but they did it. But that's the idea. I don't know how people don't understand that this is at the least a puppet show, and at the most a show of international force to get people thinking, no, you know what? Global powers aren't connected. They're fighting. Oh my God. You know, instead of thinking global powers are fucking connected, and maybe we should understand that in order to fight the concept of a Syrian war effectively. Like, you know, we can only say no more war hashtag so many times before people finally say, aren't we still in war though? Like, haven't we been in war for fucking ever? Maybe we shouldn't have elected somebody who's massively connected to business to end war. Maybe Jill Stein would have been a better choice, or John McAfee, who openly made campaigns against this sort of thing and was the first president ever to have taxes theft in his fucking campaign videos. Maybe we should use somebody who's alternative to the mainstream if we want to be alternative, you know, but we come in with... Well, John McAfee. John McAfee had a lot of really good points. I still don't want a president, and I wouldn't have voted for him. And, you know, people say, oh, well, that's the problem. But, you know, John McAfee was so much better than Trump on an anti-war stance, and he knew so much more than Trump about foreign policy decisions that it's fucking stunning. Like, and he's the one who's out.
All right, Harding, you got to keep ranting for a bit. Keep up your ranting. You're doing good.
But yeah, like, that's the essential idea. You know, George Orwell said, if you want a vision of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever. It's true. Statism isn't ever going to be like the solution to this. It's never going to be the solution to trust the people the most deeply entrenched in the system. It's never going to solve anything to have a president in charge in the first place, because the presidential system is only a mask to the international global conspiracy. We have much deeper problems than who the electors decide will get in. And, you know, people on the Republican side have done this twice now. They've, you know, claimed that there's some sort of issue with believing that the system is rigged, when the truth is that they're rigging the system in their benefit. They're rigging the system in their benefit the same way they always have, the same way with the Democrats. The reason Obama was in was because the elites liked him. The reason Bush was in and his father was in and Clinton was in was because the elites liked them. It's not because they're good for the American people. It's not because they're going to change the status quo. In fact, they're going to advance it for their new world order. So you have these people who have been connected for a long time to international cabals, and suddenly they're going to change the system for the better. They're going to change it from within. Well, it's sort of like the thing, you know, I've been told quite a bit that if I want this sort of political change, what I need to do is I need to join the system from within and change it there. And, the good response I like is something that I saw from once. You don't like McDonald's. It's not about not going there and not buying their food. It's a matter of joining them and changing them from the inside. It's not possible. If you want the truth, if you want the solution to this problem, you have to find people that aren't connected to the Bilderberg group, and then encourage them to form decentralized action networks instead of using government as a solution. Because as government solutions go, they make for great cudgels against political opponents, and they make for very poor, effective decision-making solutions for the average worker, the average voter. They don't work for you. They work for global cartels, and they're not very interested in what you have to say, even if it's hands off Syria.
Agreed. Yeah, I'm not to clarify on Trump. I'm not disappointed because this is what I expected him to do. But I just hoped. I thought maybe.
You hope for change?
Yeah, I hope for change. I thought maybe. Well, I hoped if Hillary got elected that maybe people would be so anti-Hillary that she would have a harder time pushing a war agenda too. You just never...
Well, Hillary couldn't have gotten elected. She would have had a heart attack.
Probably. We'll see, yeah. She was not looking like she was in such good shape.
More colors than that brown on her pantsuit.
Yeah. Now I don't remember what I was going to say. I took a break from the microphone in case you're just audio listeners. Just Harding was on. I guess let's get out of here, man.
Well, I will finish this by saying, first off, listen to Moment of Rage on journalisticrevolution.com and IPMnation.com every Wednesday. And the Journalistic Revolution time is 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The IPM is 3 p.m. Eastern Standard. And the show links are all available for the archives on either site. But what I would also say is don't trust anyone affiliated with the Bilderberg group. It's a poor decision and it'll get people fucking killed.
All right. Thanks for joining us, y'all. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can follow me at JeremiahJM. You can also follow the show's Twitter at Chain Reaction, and the T is a 1. Don't trust anyone, anything that anyone tells you, especially if it furthers a state agenda. One question will shut down much of the nonsense that's been coming out in the world over the last, maybe hundreds of years, but at least the last 3 months. Where is your evidence? What is it? And most people have no idea where to even begin. And then you can talk about the truth and deal with what you know the facts are. All right. Hope you all have a good week. Peace.